Hi, and welcome back to It's a Miracle Beauty and Lifestyle. I am a beauty review and beauty budgeting channel. I am currently in the process of converting my channel over from a more 100% beauty over to beauty and lifestyle, and in that particular area of budgeting. So I thought I'd come on and do kind of a background of my budgeting style, my history, things like that, and what I've done in the last 30-60 days to change my situation. So the first thing I would mention is that I was not a good saver. I would call what I would say a rinky-dink saver. I'd save 75, I'd save 100, even up to 500, and then I'd find a reason to use it. It was hard for me to just leave the money there and not touch it. So I definitely struggled with that aspect. But the thing I did not struggle with is debt. I've actually paid off and been debt-free multiple times. I'm very good at applying a ton of my money to debt, even if it means not spending, almost to a fault. However, though, the rule is you're supposed to save 30% to yourself, pay yourself first. I would be broke the whole week and then pay my credit cards and then end up having to use my credit cards because I would pay them off or not leave enough spending money. So I'd originally found Dave Ramsey probably about 5-8 years ago. He does recommend what's called the baby steps. The only reason I'm mentioning this here is so you can kind of see where I align with his ideas and where I don't, because he is the most commonly known financial manager or financial advisor. So it's kind of nice to have like a base of what you're starting with and what most people know, and then work out from there. So as I said in the prior video, I'm not a huge fan of Dave Ramsey's videos. I feel like he's very judgmental. I feel like instead of sometimes making recommendations, he makes demands. And not everything works for everyone. Budgeting is very personal. Things that I thought worked perfect for me failed miserably. Things that I thought I was like going on a limb and being kind of crazy have been very successful for me. So it's really important to kind of take in what you can use and just leave behind what you can't. So his main 3 things, and there's definitely more steps, I believe there's 7 total, but the 3 main things is to save a 1K emergency fund. This is for exactly what I talked about a minute ago, so that when you do have an emergency, you don't have to go back to your credit cards. You can actually just use your emergency fund. The second step is to pay off all consumer debt with the exception of your mortgage. And then the third is to save 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. So I think those are all very reasonable expectations and reasonable steps to follow. And they are in my steps, just maybe not the same way as he schedules or talks about it. My budget problems or red flags I started seeing recently is one, obviously I already talked about that I suck at savings. My savings was not building the way I thought it should. Part of that I was unemployed from March 25th, or at least not full-time. I did work part-time for part of that, but March 25th-ish to October 12th-ish, I was unemployed, and I did receive unemployment, but unemployment doesn't replace that need. So I was actively looking for a job, but I wanted to find one that really fit my personality, and the culture was what I was looking for. I was very successful in doing that. I absolutely love my job, love where I work. I'm very blessed to work there. Our owners are very kind. The next thing was hiccups, because 5-10 years ago, I definitely was an active paper budgeter. I had a budget sheet. I've been using the paycheck to paycheck budget probably for my entire adult life, 19 to now I'm 42. But I stopped paper budgeting probably about 5 years ago when I had paid off all my debt and all I had was household. So I paid it all off. I didn't have that many bills. I'm like, I don't need to sit and do that every Saturday morning or every payday morning. I'm good. I kept the due dates in my Apple Calendar. Then I would either pay them that morning or just confirm that the auto pay was going through. So with that, I would have hiccups. I would forget about a subscription. I'd forget that, somebody had a sports thing or a school project or something. And there was always this need to go back to credit. I would always end up going back because I wasn't building the savings that I needed. And then I also didn't have any other way to pay for things. So some of the categories that we consistently went over was groceries and household expenses, like paper products, things like that, eating out, beauty, or every single month. Planner related recently, although I have put a stop to that and I am not spending any more. I will actually do a video of how I did my planning setup. In hindsight, I would never do it this way, but I already have it. It's already purchased. It's not like I can return it. So I will continue to use this setup. I noted that it was time to make some changes. It was time to get control and get my hands around the budget, get my hands around the expenses and things like that. So I started watching some YouTube budgeting and I discovered sinking funds. Now I had used cash envelopes for a long time, following Dave Ramsey, the cash envelope system of I put my bills in cash envelopes years ago, not now, but I put all my bills in cash envelopes. In fact, I was 20 years old. I had my first apartment. I actually used to put my rent in every paycheck. We had an envelope we kept in a bookshelf inside of a book, very secure. And we would just compile our rent there. The cash envelope system worked really well for us for most of our 20s. I would say we used it. Maybe certain bills in our 30s, but majority of it was in our 20s. We faded away as we used our debit cards more and made more money, things like that. So I had never really understood or knew the term sinking funds. Even from following him, I feel like that's not something he necessarily, at least what I saw, goes into as much detail in. So, or he combines what cash envelopes and sinking funds are. So you kind of think of them as the same. So fast forward, October 29th was my paycheck. I did start sinking funds and cash envelopes. I didn't do cash envelopes for every bill because I felt it just wasn't necessary. I can pay full them, they're done, out of there. So my first cash stuffing or envelope stuffing was $247 to various sinking funds, and didn't touch them. I did fantastic. They were sitting there. I got paid again on November 12th. I put $220 in there, so I had $467 in these cash envelopes and sinking funds. And it was kind of interesting to me, and actually these are more my sinking funds totals than my actual cash envelopes, like food and stuff had different money. I didn't count those because they don't typically carry over. So that was November 12th. My total was $467 in my envelopes. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm giving you an idea of how these sinking funds can really save your ass. Pardon the French, but they can save your ass. So on November 15th, Michigan had a very bad windstorm. We lost power around 10 in the morning on the 15th, which was a Sunday. We did not regain power until the evening, like late evening, 6 or 7 o'clock on the 16th. They actually had to repair the lines in our area. So it was winter. It was 32 degrees out. It was 46 something in my house, and we were freezing, and I still had to go to work, and I'm not going to leave my kids here in a house with no heat and go to work. So my work is very comfortable with us working from home. We are set up for it, and most of our employees are working from home. In Michigan, we have a lockdown. That's why I'm explaining. I went and got my computer. Me and the kids went to the hotel, but unfortunately, it was a $130 expense that I didn't account for. It was unbudgeted, unexpected, and I did pull it from my sinking funds. I didn't have it in my bank account. I didn't have a savings that I was untouched and could just pull. So then fast forward the 16th, I wake up in that morning, the same morning we end up going to the hotel, and I had made a mistake on one of my auto pays. When I set up my auto pay for my QVC card, I set it up for the entire balance to come out instead of the minimum. Typically I do my auto pays on the minimum, and then I manually pay anything over that. But then I know the bill's paid, I know I can't get any late fees, no nothing, which I've never really had a problem with late pays, but it just, for me, it's peace of mind. That came out, and that was actually $365. So I'm looking at $495 of unbudgeted expenses. I was able to pull $75 out of my savings that I realized after I added everything up I did have. And then I was able to use that sinking fund with just a little bit left over. And if I hadn't had that, I would have had to use a credit card, and I probably should have actually used my credit card to get my points on my Amex card, but oh well. So I could have used my credit card on the hotel. I could have, moved money and canceled bills or whatever, but instead I just grabbed that cash on deposit. Now, one of the rules of sinking funds, you're not supposed to use, like if it says it's for household, you're not supposed to be using it for beauty. They're supposed to be for that set thing. But in the event of an emergency, to have all that cash available to you was extremely beneficial to me. So for me, sinking funds cemented that that's a system that works for me. One of the things that I figured out in these 3 paychecks that I have started using sinking funds is that mental tricks that trick my brain work for me. So I have trouble when money is sitting in a bank account with no distinct purpose. Savings isn't enough for me. Emergency fund isn't enough for me. When it has no distinct purpose, in my head I'm like, oh, I could buy that planner thing, or I could buy that palette, or I could pay off that bill, or whatever. And it goes fast. My savings never sit there. I always find a way to use them. Vast majority it is kids needs or school budgeting, but I am known, or debt budgeting, but I am known to go blow money as well. So for me, it wasn't working. One of the things I figured out is the sinking funds identify a purpose. So it's a household, it's a home, expenses, it's car insurance, whatever it is, it has a purpose, and I don't touch that money. I don't touch them. Even my cash envelopes in my wallet, I'm less likely to touch it. So obviously the cash envelope theme of cash burning through your hands hurts more than a debit card definitely is true with me. I personally find that I will do anything I can to not break that 20 because I don't want that money going anywhere. So I do put a lot of my cash in my envelope, or my cash envelopes in my wallet. I use 20s because I'm less likely to break them, or even higher denominations. I think that using your sinking funds the way that I am and doing that before the emergency fund is very untraditional in the finance world. But for me, that is an emergency fund, and I am going to be planning in January of starting an actual emergency fund in that envelopes, because it works for me. And if it works for me, that's what I need to do. Even if it's untraditional, even if it doesn't work for other people, it works for me and it's allowing me to be successful. So the other thing that the month of November taught me is that mistakes happen. And in the past, when I would budget, like I remember being in my early 30s, we had a very big family and we were lower income, and I would budget to the penny. And then when something came up, either I didn't have the money for it or I'd be upset I forgot that bill or whatever. And I just throw caution to the wind, and we'd end up even further in debt because instead of just stopping and fixing that, I would overreact to it and just go, oh, budgets don't work. So for me, it was very great to have that issue and then regain my composure and continue budgeting the next paycheck and not allow just to throw caution to the wind and say, forget it. So that to me is important. It's really important to know that budgeting mistakes happen. Nobody is perfect. Things happen and things pop up. You had no way you could have expected. We could have expected a windstorm. I mean, this QVC thing was totally my fault. Totally my fault. I should have read the email that confirmed it. But the windstorm was not my fault. But having that fund available made us not worry, and it made us not, be paranoid about that situation. So another thing about sinking funds that I know I never thought of doing, and I think works fantastic, is using sinking funds for annual, semi-annual, quarterly, or intermittent various expenses. So I'm thinking car insurance, I'm thinking annual subscriptions to things, or quarterly, homeowners insurance, anything that you don't pay monthly that is a regular thing for you, you can create that sinking fund. And then when that bill comes, you just deposit that money and that bill's paid. I personally am doing it for subscriptions. I'm doing it for boxes. I'm doing it for car insurance, health insurance, or home insurance. Health is not in there. So I'm kind of building these sinking funds so that when that bill comes, I can just drop that money and be done with it. And that for me is very important because less bills each month comes from paying off debt. That's going to obviously reduce the amount of bills I pay, but also by having that money sitting there and then all I gotta do is deposit, it's not coming out of that paycheck, or at least all of it isn't coming out of that paycheck. Another mental trick that worked for me was savings challenges. Again, I've voiced a million times in both videos that I suck at saving. And one of the things that I've been really good with is I'm doing the 52-week challenge. Instead of doing it 1 in January and 52 in December, I actually just do a random generator and I make sure I don't duplicate numbers, so I'm getting random amounts. So as of today, with 3 checks, I actually have $101 in there. And that for me is like the smallest amount possible, but it's something that I will not touch it. Like I am not going anywhere near it. Whereas if it was in the bank, I would pay a bill, I would do whatever. And for me, I need to get that moving. That's going to be a great way for me to save. In the new year, I'm actually starting 2 new challenges. I'm going to do Save Happily, and I'm also going to do a $1,000 challenge. Normally runs a year. I'm going to try to do it in a quarter. That 1,000 I'm actually going to leave aside for my emergency fund. So if I reach it sooner in something else, cool, I'll have my emergency fund, but that's the goal with that challenge. So that little savings trick of pulling the cash out and not wanting to touch that cash is something that's worked for me. Now we have a safe, we keep everything in a safe, and we don't have high amounts of cash. But the point is that for me, I won't spend that. Whereas if it was on a debit card or in my savings account, I'd be getting transferred, getting used, paying off debt, or buying something. And so for me, that's a trick that just tricks my brain into saving money when normally it doesn't do it naturally. The last thing I've touched on, but I kind of want to cover is that budgets are very personal. What works for me may not work for you. What works for you may not work for Dave Ramsey, and he might judge us all for this. But the point is that you have to find what works. So if you try a budget, and let's say you try the paycheck to paycheck budget, this is Budget Mom's known for it. It's been around 100 years, but Budget Mom is very known for it, and her sheets are very awesome. I actually use them. I bought the one and printed it. So it looks like this. And I really like them. I think they work really well. I think that they help you individualize what you need to do. So it has the categories of income, bills, envelopes, sinking funds, extra debt, and extra savings. So it really helps you kind of hone in on what you want to do. It's a great page. Let's say that you try that system and it just doesn't work for you. And then you need to do weekly budgeting. Even if you don't get paid every week, that's what you need for your control over your budget. Could do it. Nobody says that you have to do it anyway. You can do it your own. I don't think you need to buy any papers or planners or anything. You actually can just budget with a notebook. I'm into stickers right now, and I just told myself the other night, I'm not using stickers anymore. I'm just going to draw it on myself, and if my handwriting's not perfect, I'm a lefty. Oh well, it's mine. It's for my use. It doesn't matter. I don't need to be perfect. So if you see a theme here, there's a little bit of perfectionist issues in my life, but it's one of those things that I think makes a huge difference when you stop thinking that there's rules. Honestly, to attribute back to my channel, is it's like makeup. We're told our whole lives, don't wear this with that, and don't wear this. And if you're over 40, don't wear this. And if you're over 60, don't wear this. None of those rules are rules really in real life. You can do whatever you want. You can wear whatever you want. You can do your budget however you want. If you like budgeting once a month and never touching your checking account and that works for you, you're a saint in my book. I am a genius because I could never do that. But if that's what works and gives you peace of mind, that's all that matters. And if sinking funds don't work for you, but electronic ones do, like, do what works for you. So that's just kind of a background on budgeting and where I am at and how sinking funds saved my ass in October and November and how I'm doing things. I am going to be doing some budgeting videos where I show you my actual budget. I show you what I'm paying. I show you where my sinking funds are, my cash envelopes, all those things. I am not able to show my income. I did sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I cannot show my income. It is part of my profession. Most people in my profession cannot. It's part of our contract, so I'm unable to show my salary. And then the other thing I want to say is that my husband and I do not budget together. We each have bills that we pay within the household, and we don't budget together.
He does his, I does mine.
He does his, I do mine, and we've pretty much done that our entire marriage, and it works for us. No need to fix what's not broken. So if you like this video, if you're looking forward to more budgeting videos, I hope you will like, share, subscribe. Make sure when you click the subscription, you do look at your notifications. Just subscribing doesn't mean you'll actually be notified that there are videos. You actually have to check that and decide how often you want to be notified. And I will be doing somewhere in mid-December and near Christmas, I'm going to be doing some cash stuffings. Still filling things out to decide I want to really do that, but it's something that I enjoy watching, and so I thought maybe it would be something you would enjoy. So if you like cash stuffings, I hope you will like this video, share, subscribe, and I hope I'll see you again soon.